We're going through a series on walking with God. That's our theme for this year. And the series we're going through is the book of Genesis. And I hope that you're enjoying it as you dig into the Old Testament and dig up some nuggets of information and wisdom from the past. We're going to be taking a look at the Tower of Babel today in Genesis chapter 10 through 11.
Okay.
What's the most impressive man-made object to you? Like
Space shuttle.
Space shuttle, okay.
Pyramids. Yeah.
Pyramids, okay. What else?
Wall of China.
Great Wall of China. Anything else? We've exhausted our supply. There were the seven wonders of the ancient world, the hanging walls, the hanging gardens of Babylon, different things like that. It's interesting. We have an inward desire to leave a mark, to leave behind something permanent in this world. And it can be something as simple as carving TLF into a tree. Reuben and Christie, TLF, True Love Forever. Or writing something in graffiti on a wall just to say, hey, I was there. Something permanent. There's something that is, okay, I see some people have put up graffiti. They're laughing right now. Okay. We're going to take a look at some people that had that same desire in Genesis chapter 11. So let's read together Genesis 11, starting in verse 1. Now the whole world had one language and a common speech. As people moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there. They said to each other, "Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth." But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. The Lord said, "If as one people, speaking the same language, they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other." So the Lord scattered them from there over all the earth, and they stopped building the city. That's why it was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the whole world. From there the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth. Okay, we're not going to cover in detail the chapter right before this, Genesis chapter 10, but that's the table of nations. Remember Kyle a couple of weeks ago talked about the flood? How everything was destroyed except for the 8 people. Well, from those 3 men who were the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, the rest of the world was populated. And so in Genesis chapter 10, 70 names are mentioned, 70 people that became fathers or ancestors of nations. That's called the Table of Nations. I find it interesting in Luke chapter 10, it says, after this, the Lord appointed 72, or in some versions it says 70 others, and sent them 2 by 2 ahead of him to every town and place where he was about to go. Commentators believe that this is a hint. This is a foreshadowing that Jesus intentionally did to help remind the disciples what he wanted to do, that God was going to save what he had created. 70 known nations at the time, and Jesus here is sending out 70 people to rescue what he had created. And then that was fulfilled in Matthew 28 when he said, "Go and make disciples of all nations." But let's get back into our primary chapter here in the Tower of Babel. So there was one language and a common speech. But what's interesting is that in the previous chapter, it mentions that there are different languages. In chapter 10, in verse 5, in chapter 10, verse 20, in chapter 10, verse 31, it mentions that as the people scattered, they went with their tribes, their people, and their different languages. So why is that? In this chapter, it says they just had one language. In the previous chapter, it said that they had multiple languages. Well, there's 2 explanations. One is that there was one primary language. There was a lingua franca. Just like today, there's a primary language, English. In general, like if you go to Europe, you're going to go on vacation, You can get by with English. 200 years ago, what was it? French. Okay, there was a primary language. So it could be that there was one language, there are multiple languages, but people can communicate with one primary language. That's one explanation. Another one I think is even more plausible is that the writer reversed the order of these chapters. Okay, so this chapter here happens before the scattering of the nations, which makes sense. And so why is that? Because the Tower of Babel illustrates the problem that God is going to have to solve in chapter 12 when he highlights this man named Abram. And so it creates tension. We read about the flood. We read about the sin that was pervading the whole world. Well, God wiped them out. But guess what? The sin came back. The pride came back. The problem remained. And so chapter 12 is God's solution to the increasing alienation from him. And so he provides a righteousness or a way to get to heaven that comes from himself. Now let's go on. Let's keep reading here in chapter 11, 3 through 4. They said to each other, "Come, let's make bricks, and bake them thoroughly." They used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we'll be scattered over the face of the whole earth." In this short little section here, in Genesis 11, 1 through 9, there's two conversations going on. There's a conversation among people, and then in 6 through 9, there's a conversation that God has. And this is where the people are talking. They gather around, it's like a huddle, and say, "Hey, let's come up with a plan here." And they're having a conversation, and they said, "Listen, we don't want to be scattered." Now in chapter 9, in verse 1, after the flood, God told Noah, he said, "Be fruitful and multiply and spread over the face of the earth." That was his command. They're going to go to the ends of the earth. But these people said, "No, we don't want to do that." So what's driving them? I think first of all, the desire for safety and security. They want to build a city and a tower that reaches the heavens. And this word, tower, is related to the word for great, meaning a symbol of strength and pride. They wanted to build a monument that would just be awesome, powerful. They wanted to have a monument to their greatness and their wisdom. And whether it was a ziggurat or a pyramid, they're not exactly sure. Some people say that it was basically a way to get back at God for what he did in Genesis 6 through 9. That tower was like a middle finger toward the heavens, basically, like, we're going to show you. If there's a flood again, we're not going to drown this time. In fact, Nimrod, who's associated with Babylon, in Josephus' writings, said Nimrod also said he would be revenged on God if he should have a mind to drown the world again. For that he would build a tower too high for the waters to be able to reach, and that he would avenge himself on God for destroying their forefathers. So some writers said, listen, this was a deliberate plan by God, saying, we're going to show you. You're never going to drown us again. What can we learn here? Well, we can try to resist God's will for us by seeking a safer path of security and comfort. In this life, there's a lot of uncertainty. I was talking to a couple last night. The man nearly died from COVID. It's like 4.5 weeks on life support, on ventilation. It's the most riveting story. So sad. The guy is so healthy. Like, to look at it, how could that ever happen? And it was super, super powerful. But you just realize this life is so uncertain.
Yeah.
And so we try to build fortifications. They're going to handle anything. I'm going to build a retirement account that will handle everything. I'm going to have Medicare. I'm going to have Medicare Plus. I'm going to have Medicare Plus, just in case I cover the things the Medicare Plus doesn't cover. And it's going to be free on top of that. And I'm going to go for a couple more pluses along the way. And if I save all this money, and if I buy these 3 houses, then I'm going to be set for the future, and nothing can reach me. And there's the mindset that says, hey, I want to build something that's unshakable. That nothing God does or anything else can ever shake me. And yet it's such a fool's errand when we do that. We try to build our life here on earth and our future so that we don't have to walk the road of faith. We don't want to be scattered. But God said, hey, I want you to go to the ends of the earth. And when you do that, there's a lot of uncertainty, isn't there? Yeah. When God calls you to do things, you want to just stay at home, just have your Netflix and your your Prime subscription just nailed down, and you just got everything, you're set and you're comfortable. And God says, no, I want you to go. Get out of your comfort zone and keep moving.
Come on, bro.
Yeah, that's the challenge we all face. Yeah. What else was motivating these people? Ambition and vanity. They said, let's make a name for ourselves. And another translation says, let's be famous. Let's build something that just brings us glory, to be remembered and to be honored. In one commentator, they said that every person who was building the city and the tower got to put their name on the brick. It was printed into the brick. So you had a brick that was like Ellie and Noel. And hey, there's my brick. Right there. There's Matt Flores, right here. And so they said, okay, the names are all written. It's going to be there for a long time. It's in brick. Archaeologists have tried hard to find this place. Not a single brick has been discovered. If their names were written, they're buried under the sand somewhere. I love the poem by Shelley. Now, my wife always gets nervous when I read poetry in a sermon. She's like, honey, don't do it. I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it. I did this once early on in my marriage, dating relationship, but we still ended up getting married. So Shelley, he wrote a poem about this very concept of how we try to build something that's going to last. And this is a picture of Ozymandias. And Shelley wrote this poem about this king who built this statue to his greatness. And he found it, and it was just lost in the desert, just toppled. Let me just read it to you. I met a traveler from an ancient antique land who said, 2 vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor, well those passions red which yet survive, stamped on those lifeless things. The hand that mocked them, and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal, these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing besides remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. This guy tried to build a monument for himself. It's going to stand forever. Look at my works in despair. And there's just nothing around it years later. We try so hard to build something in our lives that's going to last, where we're going to be remembered. No one's going to forget our name. How do we do that? Well, how about likes on Facebook? Or social media, posting, writing a book. A lot of different ways we try to get remembered. Oh, but I want you to think about it. How many people have ever heard about the kingdom of Samaria? Okay. Know any names from that kingdom? This awesome kingdom? Let's just make it a little more personal. You're going to be forgotten in 100 years. Your kids are not going to remember you except from what they heard from grandma. Oh, she made a great apple cobbler. That's how you're going to be remembered. And then the next generation, they won't even remember that. The only one who's going to remember your name is God.
Amen.
Jesus said this in Luke chapter 10. He offers a warning. Let's read this. The 72 returned with joy and said, Lord, even the demons submit to us in your name. Yes! Oh, you can just see them fist pumping like, dude, I brought the curse, man. I just brought it. I just said, in the name of the Lord Jesus! Those demons just fell. feeling pretty close to it. I mean, they're just strutting. They're just pumped. They're like, yes, I'm getting this discipleship thing. What does Jesus say? He replied, don't rejoice, the Spirit submit to you. Rejoice that your names are written in heaven.
Wow.
Man, we strive so hard. We go, man, I did this. I did this. Man, you should have seen me do that. Man, I'm cranking at work. I'm just doing it here. I'm doing it there. I'm doing it everywhere. But Jesus says, hey, you know what matters? Is your name written in heaven? Because that's the only place it's going to last. Everything you do on earth is going to be forgotten if it's not done for Christ. What else is driving these people? A false unity. They're trying to get unified. They're trying to build a unity, but it wasn't based on God. They were resisting God's command to fill the earth. In chapter 9, verse 1, it says, Then God blessed Noah and his sons, saying to them, Be fruitful and increase in number and fill the earth. God had told them, he said, I want you to go and spread out. But they said, no, we don't want to do that. How do we try to build unity? Political correctness, what we wear, what we listen to, what political party we support, what color our skin is, what age we are, where we live in Tucson, what neighborhood we live in. There are all sorts of ways that we create a unity, try to create a team. This is who I am. I'm part of this community. I'm part of this group. I'm known for this. And yet, God is calling us to a unity based on Him. So all those things are driving their desires. Let's keep going in chapter 11, 5 through 7. But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. The Lord said, if as one people speaking the same language they had begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language, and so they will not understand each other. So just like the people, they had a conversation, hey, come, let's build this tower. God, again, showing that there's a trinity, there's a plurality, there's a unity, there's one God. But He has a conversation with Jesus, the Spirit, and the Father. And He says, come, let's go down here and take care of this situation. Here's the irony. God had to come down to see this massive tower they were building. It's like, it's so small, we got to get down and, come on. I can't even focus on it so far down there. We got to go down here. You see it yet? Not yet. There it is. No, that's not it. And God is just saying, let's go down and see what they're building. I mean, these people are like, this thing is so awesome. It's scraping the sky. But God just like, where is it? It's down there somewhere. He's slow to judgment. He's patient. He wants everyone to have time to repent, doesn't He?
That's right.
He doesn't just like send a lightning bolt and just destroy it. He says, let's go check this out. He looks things over before He destroys. We're going to read more about that in the story of Sodom and Gomorrah as we get to that. That's going to be a happy Sunday. Well, what can we learn from this passage here? The capacity for organized evil. Because when you read this, you go, is God petty?
Nope.
Is He threatened? Is it, oh, this is scary. These people gang up on us. We're in trouble. They're going to build like a ladder up here and climb up into heaven. We got to stop these people. Yeah! You can read it that way, but that's not, God is not threatened at one bit. But what does He recognize? We're social people. We have this capacity to work together if we want to, for good, which is awesome. Like in a church, you can work for good. Or you can work together and accomplish tremendous evil if you do that. And that's what God's talking about. So these people are unified. If they really keep going in this direction, only more sin is going to be magnified. Think about Hitler. 21 million people dead because of his reign from 1933 to 1945. Stalin, 23 million. Mao Zedong, 70 million people. How? Because they were able to get into the driver's seat of their society. They were able to take control of that steering wheel and that shifter. And all of a sudden, no one could get them out for 10 or 20 years. And in that time, you can do so much damage. If you can coordinate and be unified, whatever the purpose might be. And God says, listen, if these people working together with one language keep going like this, there's no telling the damage that's going to happen to the human race. That's his motive. Otherwise, we read it like some petty tyrant. I don't want them to do that. I don't want them unified. No, that's not at all what God's talking about here. So comes up with a unique solution. He confuses the language. You think he just kind of, how about just an earthquake? You think, like if you were God, what would you do? Don't like the tower, don't like the city, don't like the bricks. Earthquake? That would work. Tidal wave? A little far from the ocean, but you could probably manage it. Plagues? Pestilence? I mean, God's got a whole armament. He just like opens up the closet doors like, what are we going to choose here today? No, he says, let's confuse their languages. Why? Because an earthquake, you can always rebuild. A tower you topple, you can always restart it. But when you confuse the languages, you take away the ability to work together in a coordinated fashion for evil. And so, he goes after the languages. We're going to struggle with this. We still feel the impact of this issue. We still feel the problematic issues that come from different languages. Now, I was tempted to ask people to stand up and speak in their native language. In fact, I was really tempted to ask Rachel Flores to get up and speak a few words in Tagalog, but I'm not going to do it, Rachel. Before she has a heart attack back there. But I lived in Japan for about 10 years. And I thought going there, I thought, well, I went to UC Berkeley. Pretty smart guy. I'm not bragging or anything, but I'm pretty smart. I can learn some stuff. And for about 10 years, I just struggled trying to learn that language. St. Francis Xavier, he called it the devil's language. He did. That's another smart person. And I just go, it was a tough language. Let me share some of the problems I had. I remember one time I had a little baby, David. We were on a train one night, and we were coming back. We went down to the military base, and we're coming back, and I wanted to know whether the train we were on was an express train or a local train. A local train hits every station. Express train just goes past. So I'd gone to school for a few months at that point. So I went up to a man sitting down. He was a salary man, and I said, "Sumimasen. Kono densha wa kyoku desu ka?" I think I just stared at him. What I asked him was, is this train an express train? Well, what I didn't know was, I said the wrong word. I said kyoku. The word is kyuko. So that guy just stared at me. So then I thought, I gotta slow it down. My Japanese a little fast for me. That guy just still stared at me. And then, right behind me, I hear the door sliding shut. And I rush over, and I see my wife and my 2-month-old baby on the platform waving goodbye to me. I don't know how I found her that night. We found each other at I think it's the next station. It was crazy. Okay, I just got to share one more story. We had lived in a house and we bought a washer dryer combo, one of those stackable types. Well, the electric dryer broke. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to call the electrical company that we bought it from. And I said, hey, this is Rod Skinner. I'm a foreigner. Of course, he didn't know that from my language, but I'm a foreigner. I didn't know that. And so I said, hey, my dryer's broke. Now, I didn't know the word for dryer, so what I did was I said, the Englishized version, I said, Boku no doraya, koarechata. And he's like, it's broken to pieces. And he said, I'm sorry, we don't fix dryers. They said, you're going to have to bring it in. I said, what? I didn't have a car. All I had was a bicycle. I said, no, it's broken. Like, Doraya, Guarachata. He's like, we'll just bring it on in. I'm like, bring it on in? Is that what they do here? So, I unscrew this dryer. I load it on the back of my shopping bike. It's got a little book rack in the back. Hold the steering wheel, and I walk a half a mile while this thing just shakes, getting all the way in. So I walk up to the electrical supermarket. It's called Seinan Denki. And so I see all the workers there, and they're like, they're trying not to laugh. And then I see them talking to each other, and they're doing this. And I said, here it is. Here's the dryer. And they said, well, that's not a dryer. That's a console denki. And so the word that I use for dryer is a hair dryer. So what I was actually asking the guy on the phone was, hey, my hair dryer broke. Can you come out and pick it up and fix it? Well, anyway. I can thank God for that problem with the confusion of languages there, I guess. Okay, so you confuse the language, very powerful solution now. Chapter 11, 8 through 9. Can we turn down the heat a little bit, Pernell? See some people drooping a little bit. Scattering. So the Lord scattered them from there all over the earth, and they stopped building the city. That's why it's called Babel. Because there the Lord confused the language of the whole world. From there the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth. The very thing they didn't want to have happen is exactly what happened. God scattered them. In Job chapter 3:25, Job says this, what I feared has come upon me. What I dreaded has happened to me. Here's a little side note. What are you afraid of? Jesus said, according to your faith, it'll be done to you. But there's also something on the negative side. Oftentimes, what you're afraid of, that will also come into your life. Whatever you focus on, whether it's good or whether it's bad, somehow is a way of making it into your life. And these people said, we don't want to be scattered. Guess what happened? It's exactly what happened. So what are you fixated on? What are you nervous about? You got to replace that with faith. Absolutely. So then it says that the name Babylon is where we basically get the name Babel, means confusion. And the people are scattered. So what can we learn here? The futility of resisting God's will. The danger of overstepping our boundaries. And it's just saying, no, I'm not going to do that for God. No, I'm not going to share my faith. No, I'm not going to give financially. No, I'm not going to serve. I'm not going to help out in childcare. I'm not going to help out in the kids' kingdom. No! Get someone else to do it. I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not going to help the poor. No, I'm not going to go there. Go on a mission team? Heck no! And we just say, I don't want to do it. I know God said go and make disciples. I'm not going to do it. No, we don't say it like that. But inwardly say, no, I'm not going to do that. And no one can make me. And we just set a line that says, I will not do what God has called me to do as a disciple of Christ. And there's a danger of unifying with others.
Yeah.
Because there's someone else that feels the same way. It's like, I don't want to do that. Neither do I.
Yeah.
Come, let us together not do God's will.
Yeah.
Isaiah chapter 45, verse 9 says this, what sorrow awaits those who argue with their Creator? Does a clay pot argue with its maker? Does the clay dispute with the one who shapes it, saying, stop, you're doing it wrong? Does the pot exclaim, how clumsy can you be? Some of us, you know what? We're in an argument with God. You're in a fight with God right now. God is saying, hey, I really would like you to do this. I want you to go in this direction. No, I'm not going to do that. That's not me. That's not who I am. You can't make me. and you are in a fight with God, and you're resisting it, and if anyone even broaches a subject like, hey, back off! I can do what I want. But your argument is with God. You've set limits that said, I will not do that. And that's the problem that we see with these people. They said, we're not going to be scattered, and you can't make us. Are you angry at God? You shaking your fist at heaven like these people? So we're going to show you. We're going to do nothing of what you want. The scattering and confusion gets reversed in Acts chapter 2, verse 5. Now they were staying in Jerusalem, God-fearing Jews from every nation under heaven. Okay, everyone had come back here to Jerusalem. When they heard the sound, a crowd came together in bewilderment because each one heard their own language being spoken.
Wow.
Okay, the scattering, the confusion of languages. But when God brought them together at the founding of his kingdom, of his city in heaven, guess what? He gave them the ability to understand one another. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
All nations coming together to join one family. And that was God's plan. And here he reverses the curse that he had sent in Babylon. God is establishing his kingdom on earth, not someone else's city. He has his own city in mind for everyone who wants to join. A city united in God by the gospel in one family. Wouldn't it be awesome to be a part of that?
Yes.
Absolutely. God reverses the curse of this language confusion. I want to just close by saying this. There is only one name that will always be remembered. That's Jesus.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not Tom Brady. It's not Patrick Mahomes. It's Jesus. Not for his pride. He'll be remembered for his humility. Not for his love of security. But Jesus is remembered for his sacrificing everything for others. Not for making a name for himself, but for letting the Father lift his name above all other names. You are not that person. But you still have a chance to be remembered. You can have your name written in the book of life. Your name can be written in heaven. I know you want to make a difference. I know you want your life to count. I want to tell you how to do it. You got to get your name written in the book of life. You've got to get your name written in heaven. That's what Jesus offers. He says, listen, my name will be remembered for all time. My word will never be forgotten. He said that. But your name can be written in heaven. You need to repent and get baptized. And allow yourself to be adopted into the family of God, clothed with Jesus, the name that lasts forever. What name's going to be remembered? Jesus.
That's right.
Jesus. Jesus. Thank you very much.